Hi, you are watching Site Simplest and this is Romesh Srivastava. Please to subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders, and business heads. Today, we are trying to understand that how the generative AI is transforming the organizational culture. Generally, when we call the culture, so there are interpretation like the shared belief, like the custom, like the values, like the behavior at the organization by the people. But the collaboration, creativity, this is also the part of culture. If you look at the speed, the decision making, this is also the part of culture. Innovation, that is also the part of culture. A lot of things are there which are being influenced by the generative AI. To dive deep, we have two senior experts. Let me introduce Mr. Srinivasa Bharti. He is the Managing Director and CEO at Adrenaline E-Systems Limited. And Ms. Usha Chirai, she is the Senior Director, Human Resources at Reflections Info Systems. So very first, I would like to understand that how do you see that generative AI is influencing or transforming the organizational culture? Any of you can respond first.
The way I look at culture, culture is, like you mentioned, a whole collective of all the values, beliefs, and systems that are around, and the way we act day to day. One of the topics around culture is how do you measure culture? How do you influence culture? Typically, in the good old days, organizations used to have an annual survey, and then it would take a couple of weeks, if not months, to deep dive into the results of that survey and figure out what's going well, what could be improved. In today's day and age, when you apply generative AI and bots to the same situation, you tend to get results real time. You do not need to wait that long to analyze which traits or which drivers of culture are going well and in which pockets of the organization. So, generative AI is definitely playing an active role in helping to condense huge amounts of data into a format that is easily understandable and actionable. So, in a way, the fact that generative AI is used in tools that analyze culture, we're able to figure out what's going wrong and take quicker action. So, in the past, it would need a human being to interpret what the data meant. Now, the tool digests half of that and gives us very specifically either pointers on what needs to change and a more quick and efficient way to track the actions. So this is the way I currently see how the tools around generative AI are helping us influence and take action about the culture that we want to build or in large transformation projects.
And Srinivas, what is your take on this?
Yeah. So I would like to start again with the definition of culture, like we say it. And you typically in the when you go for management classes, they start off with saying what's the definition of culture, and it's usually simply said as the way we do things out here, right? So when you say, okay, this is how things are done in an organization, and that forms the culture of an organization, right? And how has Gen AI and its advent kind of created disruption in the way we do things in the company, in an organization, is what I would think we should be, focusing on if we want to look at culture and see, if it's collaboration, if it's meetings, if it is like Usha said, analyzing information quickly and turning them around into, helping humans decide faster. I think that's where we can use, the power of Gen AI. Finally, I think we should agree that Gen AI is another tool in that sense, though of course much more powerful, slightly more intelligent. Though intelligence, I don't know how much of intelligence exists at this point in time. A bit more, I think, intelligent than what typical algorithms could do, and bring us that ability to make people believe certain ways of doing things that can actually be different from the way they've been doing it today. So measuring culture, I think measuring is obviously a very tough thing to do. It can be, of course, done in many ways. But how do I understand, interpret, and take action? Those areas, I guess, we will see the impact of Gen AI coming in pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your opening comments. Generally, we always appreciate the creativity and innovation at the workplace. And if you're not creative, if you're not innovative, then you cannot survive for the long time. How do you see the generative AI is influencing the creativity and the innovation at the workplace as a culture?
So, I'm sure a lot of us would have seen some of the, the WhatsApp memes that are circulating around, right? Which is one of them that obviously is circulating is this person saying, I would like Gen AI to actually do my laundry and washing my dishes rather than trying to paint, do a painting. So, when you talked about creativity and innovation, I said, how far do we think this can help or impact creativity? I think if as long as we understand that it's an aid, it's an assistant, it's, as Microsoft puts it, co-pilot, we should be able to actually leverage that to be more creative and more innovative. But if we actually make it, something like a, walking stick, when it says, I will do whatever it wants me to do, then I think we will start losing the human creativity and innovation that is possible. So possibilities are actually endless if we leverage Gen AI in the right way. And we have this formula that we kind of started talking about and said it should be a multiplication of human intelligence and artificial intelligence. HI into AI should be the way I think creativity can actually be multiplied in a way, right? I would be glad to hear Usha's thoughts.
Usha,
I think
if I put here a couple of the examples, so yeah, absolutely. This is not the replacement of human capabilities, human intelligence, but there are certain, for example, like predictive analysis. So you can assess, suppose you are using for your employees, so you can assess for some behavioral patterns, you can also assess. So this is somehow, that helps you for the decision making. That is the creativity kind of innovation kind of. Might be some, like Grammarly, that is one of the software. So that helps you in writing, maybe grammatically, how you can write the better, how you can pick the better words. There are so many things like Slack, that is one of the examples for the collaborative team. So like this, how it is helping in a collaboration, also in creativity, also in innovation. What is your take on this?
Right. I see it is in the application of the available tools that you see a lot of innovative uses. So the same old problem or use case statements that come to a typical software developer, using tools, they are able to generate far more options in the way they solve the same technical problems. A use case we came across recently was a retail client who needed to forecast which particular colors and brands would have higher sales. And they had tons and tons of data. I think it was 20 years of data available in different formats, which had to be converted by this tool, by the application of Gen AI, into a manner that allowed them to predict their sales, and therefore, it was extremely useful. So I think the use cases are different in different industries, but the fact that this tool allows a normal software developer to come up with that many more options and solutions to pick up is where it helps generate more innovative solutions.
Yes, Srinivas, any of your take on this?
I'm sure from a technical angle, we should throw in a word of caution. The decision is as good as the data. So in your example, I think it's brilliant to actually be able to get 20-year-old data. I mean, that's great. But then that, the human intervention is certainly necessary. For example, if a new color was introduced just 2 years ago and there is not enough data about the new color, but it could get kind of dampened because there was 20-year-old data of a different color available, and the data set actually skews the prediction. So that's the human intelligence on top of the artificial intelligence, is something that at this point in time, I'm sure, is it's a great tool for innovation. And what one needs to be a bit wary of and be aware of is the bias that could set in. And we have seen a lot of that coming up. But it's certainly improved decision making, I would say, by leaps and bounds.
Right. So now coming to the HR part. So generally, when we talk about the employee engagement and employee experience, so a lot of chatbots are also there that helps in communication with the employees. How do you using the generative AI for the employee engagement and for boosting the employee experience as well?
In our case, we're using a third-party bot, which is now, I think, well established in industry. It helps to reach out to samples of our employees at regular intervals, especially in year one of their existence. They get frequent reach outs, typically that first 6 months, which are the most difficult ones for anyone entering a new organization. The bot reaches out at 15, 20, at 30 and 45-day milestones. Apart from reaching out to others during their work anniversaries, it helps to reduce the crunch time that an HR person would otherwise need to invest in reaching out to the masses. The tool reaches out, has a almost human-like conversation through a chat, and the tool therefore throws up scores about how well engaged the person is. And very often we find that it's very, very accurate in its predictions about which are the people who HR then needs to go and have face-to-face connects. It does throw up cases where there are grievances that have been left unaddressed. In the initial days, managers were a little skeptical, saying, why would a person open up to a tool when they don't open up to a human? But somehow we've noticed that employees do end up speaking much more to the tool, at least when there are sensitive topics, which can then be supplemented by human effort, where an HR partner reaches out to those people who have shown some signs of being disengaged or having a grievance which needs to be tackled. So in this fashion, we find that we can't replace the human connect, but we can definitely help to narrow down on the parts of the population needing closer attention. And this has helped us track both engagement levels as well as track elements of culture that need to be given more attention. For example, we had many people talking about the need to articulate more of the career options available and some more of learning interventions. This feedback comes because it's reached out to a large sample, and we get to know what are the themes requiring some improvement in terms of culture. It also helps us benchmark our culture versus similar sized companies in industry because they have a huge data set. And it definitely makes us feel more positive about things going well in our organization and where we can improve more.
Srinivasa, I'm curious to know your perspective as a HR tech, you represent a HR tech organization. So I'm curious to know your perspective. And if you can also share a couple of examples, so that would be great.
So we, of course, also offer a bot that goes along with our platform. But like, Usha said, I think it's about how can you enable this to engage with employees at the right time. I think time at that moment, how do you actually capture that, the emotion, if it is emotion, if it is a feedback at that, of that moment, elation, if it is elation, then that, how do you capture that right moment? And how do you, get the feedback loop done, to ensure that action is taken promptly, whether it's about stemming attrition, whether it is about improving wellness, whether it's about engaging the right employee at the right time of his or her, work day. I think we have had very good examples from the way we have done this for many of our customers, and we see this as a great engagement tool. Primarily because one, it is not very intrusive in that sense, as long as it is very built non-intrusive, and it kind of provides an ability for employees to be honest and transparent with their responses. Then I think we are able to then provide the tools for the respective HR facilitators to respond quickly. And that's also used. What we do is anonymized information or data from the bot can be used for multiple other decision-making processes. Whether it's about employee wellness, sometimes also simple things like Monday blues, right? So we do provide a simple thing called Monday blues, where you find either late coming to office or late signing in, or sometimes absenteeism on Mondays linked to certain personal stress that employees may be facing, or certain habits they picked up during weekends. So see, these are simple examples where interventions using bots have helped companies a lot in providing excellent engagement with their employees, thereby improving both the work culture as well as the ability for employees to connect better among their social circle within the company and the organization.
If you look at the employee experience and the engagement part, so communication, that plays a very important role. And the HR practices, if you have the real-time data, if you have the real-time feedback, so that also helps you to create new policies, and you can communicate to the employees, and that obviously that is going to boost the employee experience. Do you see the generative AI has helped in communication or helping you to frame the real time, getting the real time data so that you create more employee friendly policies, and that can help to create the employee experience?
So far, I must be honest, I haven't seen any real time use case of tweaking a policy. We continue to use the old fashioned method of, reviewing, getting inputs from multiple stakeholders before we update a policy. However, I can imagine that in the future, it should be easy to launch a custom survey having multiple participants from different companies to share their policies. That could be an interesting case where we get data real time from different participants instead of going the pen and paper method where we typically reach out, participate in a survey. If we had a compensation survey, we would participate in a long drawn out process before we get results. So it would be interesting to have a tool that allows us to reach out to a select set of companies and get real-time data on policies to be able to benchmark and tweak. But I think we could have a closer use case in the way we communicate policies back. We could customize the communication depending on the audience characteristics and make the policy documentation that much more customized to the intended audience.
I think I'll add to that. From a perspective of getting feedback and kind of real-time modification of policies, I think we still have some way to go. But then what we do have now is the ability to generate a survey based on an event. So you could actually trigger a survey, using the Gen AI methods based on various events. So, for example, one of the things we've been trying is, let's say our employees have gone for a travel and they've come back and raised a travel claim. And at the point of raising the claim, you could actually get feedback on the travel policy very quickly, and you could then assess, what category of employees are giving you feedback about the various aspects of the travel policy, in terms of their hotel stay, it could be a lodging, it could be their per diem, it could be whatever, which sometimes generally ends up with, in gossip always, but you could actually get real factual data, which was triggered by an event, but then using, mechanism of generating a quick event-based survey, you could get that feedback. But then acting upon it to alter the policy or change the policy, I think it still possibly would require some amount of human intervention, because that would then possibly impact other things that will need to be considered by the organization or the management. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, about how you can actually use this for communication, which means today I think that's an easier part, because the ability for Gen AI to provide communication in multiple languages now, that and instantly actually provide that to different employees or people across the organization who may be in multiple countries, or natives of multiple languages. I think that's a huge advantage that's already available, and that I think a lot of organizations are making use of today.
We have, I think, discussed about the pros of the generative AI, and if you look at the cons part, so generally we talk about some risk and some ethical consideration. That is, challenge. So when you are implementing or integrating the generative AI with your HR process, HR tools, so according to you, that how we can make it, unbiased, how we can make it more ethical for the practices. What is your take on this?
I haven't yet come across the real case, but I have heard that we would be using Gen AI to filter out candidates, right? So in the selection process. And like we discussed earlier, the tool would learn based on the input parameters given by us. And there's a huge danger that we might put in bias criteria for screening out candidates, and that bias could get amplified by the tool. So that's an ethical consideration we need to keep in mind before we use Gen AI for some important processes like filtering out the candidates from the even internally if we're going to use it for performance management related decisions like promotions. So the tool is as good as the input we put in. And if we use unfiltered or biased data getting into the tool, then it gets amplified. And that's an ethical consideration we would definitely need to keep in mind.
Yes, any of your take on this?
Certainly. I think the two things that I think we talked about earlier is about the data sample that's used, and the training that has been provided for the model. Both of these can lead to whatever biases that come in. But then there are ways to identify them and improve this for better decision making. The important thing is in ethical consideration, understanding first principles. What is the meaning of fairness, right? I think does fairness always means no bias or unbiased? What does fairness mean, right? So we have to start from that and say, okay, if we have to make the process fair, then how do I eliminate both human bias as well as the AI bias, right? So the past data could be a reflection of the human bias that existed, which to some extent obviously comes out when you use a Gen AI mechanism. But in the process of that, you could actually introduce some of the AI-based biases that could creep in. So I think this is better handled, obviously through a kind of a hybrid process, right? So the human intervention in the process while the training of the model is being done, the sampling of the data that's provided is also checked for these biases, can help better outcomes, certainly. Though it's easier to be said than done. It will take its own time, I guess, for this to become more mature. We have read, of course, already about the typical ones that already exist, right? So, for example, if I want to hire if I want to increase diversity, but I look at the old data, which really did not have much of diversity, the AI would possibly continue to suggest, lesser diversity in terms of the CVs that it would look at, right? So I think intervening based on the policies that we need to build in for better usage of AI, and the ethical usage of AI is important, and that can only be done by ensuring there is a rigorous process in the way the model is trained and used, using proper human intervention in the process itself.
Wonderful. Usha, we are also at the end of time right now, and we have been, I think, able to cover all the important, the elements of this topic. Anything else which is important and we did not touch here, would you like to share?
We have done justice as in covered the broad parameters, and we would realize that these are still the initial days where we are using application of GenAI. There has been a lot of conversation on the possibilities and the potential, but we would, as the situation evolves, only we would be able to come up with real-time, real-life cases and the impact and the possible steps we need to take to make sure that the GenAI brings out the best in the decisions that we are going to use it for.
Any of your final comments, Srinivas?
Okay. So I had 4 or 5 points. I think if we keep these 5 tenets, I think for while using AI, which I jotted down, which is one is of course privacy. We did not talk about privacy. To ensure that privacy is also considered when we crunch information, when we share data with the large data models, transparency. I would think robustness of the system itself, fairness while using it, and explainability, which means, can I actually explain that's one of the biggest challenges I see with AI, right? It can't explain how it came up with a certain suggestion at this point in time. I think I'm sure people are working on it, and I do read about it and see that people are trying to find ways of the model itself explaining how it came up with something that it has come out with as an answer or a response. What are the sources? How did it actually pick it up? What happened in the way in which it actually responded back to you? I think explainability would also be an important part when we consider how we implement Gen AI. So these are the 5 things I think one should possibly look at when they look at implementing Gen AI in their systems and in their organizations.
So I think we have been able to justify the subject. Thank you so much, Srinivas and Usha, for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.